So, welcome to Easy Awakenings. And again, be as relaxed as possible. There's no need. It's nothing too formal. I got to remember not to click this damn thing all the time. It makes this horrible noise. You're hearing this great recording, then click, click, click.
Right.
But yeah, welcome to Easy Awakenings, Edie. Your last name?
Franklin.
Edee Franklin is joining
Franklin.
us. Okay,
Yes.
okay. And I'll let you explain a little bit about what you do a little later on. But we
Okay.
really want to thank you for coming on. This is a great episode. We're very happy to have you here.
I'm excited.
So
I'm really excited.
I'm so thrilled to see Edie. We haven't seen each other for a while.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So it's good. Old connections are sometimes the best connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you guys meet?
We met at Landmark.
Yeah, at Landmark. We were doing. Was the forum or was it?
We met in SCLP.
Okay, so it was
Yeah,
SCLP.
Forum. We met in Forum,
And then-
Advanced, and then SCLP.
Self-expression leadership training program.
Okay, all right.
So we did that. What was your project?
Wisdom First. It's still in the making.
Is it?
But now I'm with this project.
Oh, okay. So talk about this project. Different project. Yeah,
Yeah.
that my
Project,
stuff
yeah.
came out of that
Yeah.
self-expression leadership training program.
Okay, all
That's
right.
where my project came from. It's now not a project. Now it's a way of life.
Yeah, no, that's good. So explain a little bit about that. So what do you mean by a way of life?
Okay,
Let's see.
so when we were doing the SCLP, I'm going to use the acronym, or an acronym, which however you say it, we had to find something that was missing in the community and then fill that gap.
Okay.
Fill the hole with
Just wanna say,
something.
I know it's a little weird, but if you could talk. kind of in-
Okay. Should I
Angle
move
it
it?
down
No,
there.
I
Yeah,
want you
yeah.
in there. Anyway.
We're working on
okay.
that, folks. We're working on that.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to. Now I'm conscious of this. I want
Yeah,
to talk to you.
I know.
I don't know what to do.
You're good there.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
All right.
You're
So
fine.
anyway, we had to find something that was missing in the community that we could relate to.
Okay.
And then fill that gap
Okay.
with something. So at that time, people were just starting. This was like 6.5 years ago.
Yeah.
People were just starting to talk about human trafficking and what it was, and that we were hearing about it overseas and blah, 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 blah. So I'm listening to all this. And I think I've always said, and I believe it wholeheartedly, that like an author, their first book is definitely their life story. Somewhere in there is woven in. So we go back to what we know. And I had always been a woman at risk. I was alcoholic at a very young age. I started to do drugs when I was, my early 20s. I'd been a heroin addict for 10 years. I had this very colorful history, dangerous history. And I could relate to traffic victims. And then at junior high, I remember I had written a report on white slavery back then in junior high school, which was prostitution. And so I think I've been akin to this kind of, I've always been for the underdog. And so as I was looking at it, I started to learn more about human trafficking and what it really meant. And in my search, I realized that everybody was talking about it. Oh my God, this is terrible. It's so ugly. But I said, well, what happens to the victims when you find them? What do you do for them?
Yeah.
Nothing was being done. There were less than 500 beds in the entire country to help people get better. In Michigan back then, there were less than 20 beds in the entire state that were open for human trafficked people. And I thought, okay, I'm going to open up a safe house for survivors of human trafficking and help them repurpose and re-identify their lives, because I've been in recovery for 31 years. And not only my belief, what I really know to be true is that alcoholics help alcoholics, drug addicts help and human traffic survivors help each other. So we needed to get a commonality. And so lots of things came out of that concept of mine. But the first thing was I needed to start educating myself, because I got the notion, I got the idea, and then we had to create action steps to make it happen. So I was supposed to create something and give it away. And how long? You had to give it to someone else?
Yeah.
You were supposed to make it, create it, and then give it away. I thought,
so that was the platform at... Okay.
So you got to give it away for someone else to carry it on. This was not supposed to be a lifelong project. Silly them. Okay. Because when your passion is there, it becomes a lifelong project, which it came for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you were saying, I you gotta forgive me, I'm trying to adjust all this stuff while we're speaking. I'm still working on the right angle. But no. So when you talk about human trafficking, I kind of think back to like some of the some of the stipulations or the stigmas that came along with people who experience this kind of stuff. I almost got the sense that they were almost blamed for their position quite often. Is that a thing? Am I kind of making that up, or is that sort of
no? It's a real reality. It's a reality not just for the people on the outside.
Yeah.
Because we can't tend to say, "Oh, look at them. They picked that life. They chose it."
Yeah.
I always say compliance is not consent.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
just because I'm doing it doesn't mean I want to do it.
Right,
it
right.
means it's like in the LGBTQ community or any other community where you're forced to. But the definition of human trafficking is, force, fraud, or coercion for anyone 18 years of age and older.
Okay.
Under 18, an adolescent is automatically trafficked. They can't make a choice for themselves. So if they're being prostituted or sold or whatever, it's automatically trafficking.
Okay.
But so even the victims, not only the people looking at it say, "Oh, you wanted that life. It's what you decided to do." Sometimes people make one bad choice and then get locked in it.
Sure.
The victims themselves blame themselves.
Okay.
Or they don't even know how to define it. They don't have a definition for what their life was.
Yeah.
This is what I know. This is what happened. I got put in a room. They brought men in. They took pictures of me. They made me sleep with them. I did it because I wanted to do it, because my father or my cousin or whoever asked me to do it, and I figured that was the only way I could eat.
Yeah.
So I better do it. So they blame themselves for doing it and not knowing how to get out.
That kind of reminds me, like there's this whole Jeffrey Epstein. Is it Epstein or Epstein?
Epstein.
I think Epstein, yeah.
That happened a lot with that. So it's almost funny we have you here at this time,
Right,
because I remember reading about a couple of stories that this dude would get these underage girls, and they weren't too sure what was going on, and they would bring them in the room with like these really high profile, very powerful people, and kind of force them to have sex with, if I read correctly, not one but multiple people.
Yeah, it's prevalent all over.
Would you say this is, human trafficking? Just that word, those two words together, human. And then trafficking, it just makes it sound like, oh, they're just traveling around,
Right.
You're at a
from one place to another with their lattes and everything.
Right, it's
but
hardly that.
it's
Okay.
actually modern day slavery.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's exactly what
Right?
it is. It's definitely slavery.
So if we call them slaves, who
Right.
in their right mind would ever want to be a slave?
Right.
But when we say human trafficking, it just
Right, it makes it pretty.
Right,
But
right,
dismisses
Right.
the
The
seriousness
ugliness of
If you
Yeah,
call it human slavery, people are like, we need to stop this shit right now.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
right?
Exactly. But the reality of it is that there in trafficking, there doesn't have to be any transportation.
Okay.
People are trafficked right out of their own house by their own family members,
Sure,
their cousins, or their friend, their boyfriend says, "Come on over to the house tonight. We're having a party." And the next thing a young girl knows is that she's in a bedroom and the door is locked, and she's told, "Don't give your name." And men just kind of come in one after another, after another, after another, and up to, it could be 6, 8, 10 times in an evening.
Man, that's
And they're
crazy.
sold, and then the boyfriend takes the money, and then they don't get any benefit out of it, but humiliation, shame, degradation, low self-esteem, and et cetera, and don't know how to get out, because then the boyfriend says, or drugs them often. 98% of traffic victims are addicted to drugs. Says, while you were there, I took these pictures. And if you don't come back tomorrow and do it again, I'm going to take these and post them all over the internet, show the entire high school, show your family, going to affect your father, your father's job, your work. The church is going to know what they're going to think about you.
That's
That's
crazy.
right. Force, the
Nuts.
definition of human trafficking is anything force, fraud, or coercion. So they coerce them to do it again because they're going to shame them into doing it.
That, like everything, there's so much embedded in what you're talking about that just, it raises so much interest in me. Like I want to know, I think the average person doesn't understand how a human being, for one, how, like as a guy, I don't see how a dude could force someone else into that position. Like I can see through the power of like desire to want to, I can see how a rapist would be like, okay, I'm trying to chase after this, so I'm going to tackle it. Like there's something a little more mainstream about that.
Well, it's insidious because the majority, and you know, we don't have enough people that are admitting that they're trafficked, admitting that they're traffickers. Okay, we have to approach the demand. Why do people want to buy people in the first place?
Sure.
You know, people shouldn't be property. But the piece of it is it's power and control, and don't forget, GREED, greed.
Okay.
It's
Is it
100.
like 250,000 you can get from one person
from one
per
right.
year?
Yeah.
So
Per year.
So they're seeing the monetary value in this, and
It's
that
$150 billion a year industry.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's like huge money. The average price of a slave, you say $250 per slave, is $90.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they buy them for. Okay, on the open market, if you want to say it that way.
that's
So it's power
craziness.
and greed.
and then they can resell that person
Right.
for more and say, well, she's trained now, so now she's
Right.
worth even more.
She's been groomed.
So he's made 250,000 per year off of her.
and maybe he's got 5 or 6 of them
He's got 5
in
or
his stable.
6.
Okay.
I can understand the victim's perspective a lot more because you're scared. You know, you're bribed. And
Right.
yeah.
But they're so numb to the fact that they're dealing with people. They're objects. They're property. They're money. They're what's the word when they they're chattel.
Yeah.
Okay. They have ownership of these people, and that's how they see it. And it's as simple as that.
Okay.
And many
Yeah.
of the traffickers. So were abused as children. Many come through the foster care system or their own families or what have you, and they have been traumatized as youth. So you teach and do what you know, or they've been trained by their big brother or their father how to be, pimp school. How to be a pimp and how to be suave and groom people and coerce them and oh God, you're pretty. Come on, let's go out to dinner. Takes you to dinner. Here's a young girl that nobody's ever really looked at, paid attention to. Now I come in and I start paying attention to her and thinking now she thinks she loves me. She thinks she's my boyfriend, my girlfriend rather. And we start dating and going out and I buy her things, a little necklace. I buy her a McDonald's hamburger. I take her shopping for a dress. I hold her hand. He's grooming her for the big effect when he takes her to a party, filled with, influential people or in the back room of their father's basement or whatever. And now he says, this is what you're going to do tonight, or drugs them. And then they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then
The crazy thing about that is that's really on all ends of the financial spectrum. You have that with, in the worst ghettos of America, you've got that happening on, on the level like, oh, okay, well, I'm taking these girls, they might be addicted to crack or they might be addicted to whatever. And they're doing it on that level where they're making pennies off of it.
Right.
And then you have, like we're talking about, these, extreme political cases where these are the most powerful people on the planet.
Exactly.
And they're coming by and they know exactly what they're getting into and this is their hookup for it.
The human condition doesn't know the difference. Rich, poor, it really doesn't matter. I mean, human desire and wants. I mean, you're a therapist. You see it. You don't have to. You can be rich or poor. Addiction doesn't know who it's addicted. Look at the opiate addiction now. Used to be you had to be down on 2nd and Selden or down into the ghetto nobody in upper middle class families. They didn't admit it. Exactly, it was happening, but you didn't see it. You didn't talk about it. Nobody from those arenas, or there weren't any alcoholics in certain cultures. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, my own children are dying. I better mention that it's happening. So this is the same thing.
That's crazy.
Rich or poor, people want power, control, and greed. I mean, $150 billion a year industry. And this is the other thing. Okay, this is a big myth that it's all happening over there. It's right here in our own backyard.
In every state.
Every state. Every zip code. Every community. Everything. So it's not like we can't turn a blind eye. There comes a point in our life that you have to get your head out of the sand and say, my God, we have to do something about this. And that's when I, decided I needed to get a house to help these women change their lives. So that's when I went on the mission 6 years ago to open the house, a 2-year program of helping them physically, mentally, psychologically, educationally, spiritually, to be able to change their lives. Because they had no idea how to do it on their own. So they needed guidance.
Tell me. Let me fix this. We're gonna get knocked in. Sorry, audience. We're adjusting. It got smacked down a little bit. Cut your face off there. All right. I think that's better. Okay.
La 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 la.
She's a great singer too, folks. She's got an album coming out pretty soon.
Right. Oh my God. My aunt was a concert pianist.
Oh, okay.
And she
Okay.
played music and wrote music. So I would go to her apartment in New York.
Yeah.
And we'd sit there and I'd start to sing. She'd say, honey, just mouth the words. And I said, okay, Aunt Bertie, I will.
Shot those hopes and dreams right down. Man.
Right. Just mouth the words,
Yeah,
honey.
that's good.
Okay.
Nice.
Big shoulders as a little girl. I had to take a lot of grief.
All right, so what you're talking about, not the singing, but the traffic.
Right.
That brings me to another question. So we've been talking primarily about women that sort of get trapped into forms of prostitution, basically, right?
Yeah.
But human trafficking does expand beyond that.
Oh gosh, yes.
Correct?
That's
Yeah.
Sexual exploitation
Sure.
is first because it's sexy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
and it feeds into people's dreams and desires
right.
and
Most basic
more
parts of
basic
it, yeah,
part
yeah.
of human nature. But there is labor trafficking, which
Yeah.
is huge, and especially here in Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got migratory workers picking our fruit,
Sure,
our
sure.
food in the summertime. I mean, it's not especially in Michigan; it's the same everywhere.
Oh,
they
yeah,
have a different
yeah. But
industry.
there's a big,
but the
yeah.
massage parlors, nail
Yeah.
salons, the hotel industry, farming industry. I mean, it's labor trafficking in every, I mean, even to the, you see the kids down the street selling pictures down your block
Oh, okay,
or
okay.
selling magazines. All of this stuff is open season for
Okay.
trafficking people.
Oh, really? So a lot of the young kids that are out there peddling these bullshit magazines.
Yes, are doing it because they have. Even
Really?
beggars.
Yeah,
beggars
yeah,
on the
yeah.
corner
Well,
sometimes.
yeah, so beggars so I've traveled the world a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd see that in a lot of foreign countries. Much, and it was horrible. So out in China, in the southeastern parts of the country, is where I spent a lot of my
Yeah.
Chinese time. You'd often see these like ladies walking around with these babies on their shoulders, and like, oh, it's kind of cute, and she's like then asking for money, like, oh man, I feel kind of bad, let me hook them up. And it took a couple times for a friend of mine out there to say, you gotta be careful. A lot of these women, they steal these babies.
Yeah, and they use them as props.
They use them as props. They drug them up so they don't respond. They're not crying to know where they are. And sometimes they're freshly stolen children
Right.
to get money.
Sometimes they
then-
ampitate legs to make it
Oh
look
yeah,
more
in India,
it's
that's
more
huge.
pathetic.
Crazy.
To look more
You'd see
pathetic.
these like these traveling. It's almost like a circus, of these groups
Gypsies.
of people. Yeah,
I hate to say it, it's
well,
gypsies. But
yeah,
it's,
no, I know what you
know
mean though,
I
but like they were, as a child, they were probably amputated to collect money, but then they
Yes.
had no other thing to do but gather together in their older
That's-
ages
yeah.
Right.
to then make money to beg
Yeah.
for stuff and do. It's just it's.
It's
and
a
then they
vicious
take that,
cycle.
but then they
It's a
take
vicious
well,
cycle.
it's
I mean,
there's a word for it, not ancestral. It's it goes just down
Generational.
generational trafficking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it starts from up here, and then you just continue to do it. So there's sexual exploitation, there's labor exploitation,
Yeah.
there's organ trafficking. So some rich
Oh yeah,
guy.
that's huge.
What is that?
Okay,
I've
so
never heard of that before.
oh gosh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so you've got
scary.
some wealthy man, and his child needs a heart.
Yeah.
And he goes and pays somebody to go kidnap somebody else's child,
Mm.
and they take that child, they do an operation, take that baby's heart
Hmm.
to transplant into his baby's heart, or a liver, or a kidney, or
Huge
whatever.
business.
Huge,
That's crazy.
huge business.
This
Okay,
this
so-
was putting a shiver down my spine.
it
Man, this
is.
stuff is it's very upsetting.
Yeah,
Like it.
it is. It really is.
Like,
It's-
gun laws aren't so bad.
This morning when I got up and I knew we were going to be talking about this.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I told you I basically
Yeah,
I just broke down.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, we have so much to do in this world.
Oh yeah.
How
Oh, yeah.
could we let it get this far?
yeah.
That's why like when we talk about statistics,
Yeah.
I don't even like to talk about statistics sometimes because it's like, how can we even one person going through this should bother all of us.
Oh yeah.
Right?
What is
even
Rossi
one
on
person.
Criminal Minds says
Yeah.
you save one, you save them all.
Yeah.
But in this arena, we don't
Yeah.
even have any real statistics.
Sure.
There are, I mean, first of all, I can't begin to tell you the majority of people don't self-identify. So
Yeah.
they don't call up and say, I'm a trafficking victim, even though we have a Polaris hotline
Right,
that people call in and do all that stuff. But they don't say, hi, I'm a victim. Would you count me on the on the census, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so they
yeah.
don't do that. So we don't have statistics. We are trying as a group. I'm on the Michigan Human Trafficking Task Force and Oakland County Task Force for Human Trafficking, and everyone is trying to get together a centralized database so that we can actually get a handle on what is going on in our country and overseas. Okay, there's a lot of people that go to help overseas. We'd like to have a handle on who we're seeing right here in the States.
You know why? I'll tell you what the problem is. There's bullshit. That's the problem. People that are often in a position to do something about it, they spew bullshit because it may sound attractive to speak on it, but they're like, well, I want to bring awareness to it. I want to bring but they're not doing a goddamn thing about it.
Yeah.
What are they actually doing about these situations? How hard is it for you to raise money for your organization?
Oh,
what
yeah,
you do?
that's it. So you talk, everybody wants to talk about doing something.
Yeah. Right.
And I go to people and say, can you write a check? I mean, we were the first safe house in southeastern Michigan to open. There were none other. And we house, my first notion was I wanted to start a house for 150 people. I think, and they laughed at me. They said, Edee, 150 traumatized people, you'll commit suicide yourself. So then I went down to 50 and 12, and now we have a home that will house 12 people. Okay, 12 survivors, adult women. It's like not
They should be
not a spit in the bum. They should
I'm
be
sick of
pouring.
hearing about the fucking roads, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, okay, fix the roads, but put some money into this stuff.
Save some lives.
Everyone's complaining. You know, you've got politicians on every side complaining that they're not doing enough here. Who's actually putting money in the hands of people that are going to do something about it?
I know.
You've got great programs. Why aren't they funding this stuff?
Well, we were lucky enough. We have a government grant,
Good,
so we're really
good,
lucky
good.
to do that. We got a 3-year
Yeah.
grant, and they extended us a 4th year, and then in January we'll
Good.
apply again. We have private foundations that have been supporting us. We do fundraisers, and people do a Jean Saturday or a Sunday, or they collect at their house. So private money, and then we have to do fundraisers and raise money. So it costs us about $560,000 a year to run this one house, and our property has come up for sale. So we want to open another house, which would house it would actually house more people. 12, maybe we could get 16 in that house.
good.
And then we have transitional housing that we want to do, which has 4 apartment buildings in it. So they can transition out. We can have one great big campus and then they can come back and mentor the women after they come through it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
good.
And
That's
we
good.
one of the big gaps in services is a short-term, overnight housing. Like somebody gets picked up off the street, they have nowhere to go, and they need emergency housing.
Okay.
So we'd like to open up a section just for emergency housing, and then take a look at the person, get them to a therapist, get them to see what kind of options there are in a 2-year program for them to change their life, so that we have better successes. So we know we're now, after being open for a year and a half, we know better who our resident is, who's a success story for our program. Not everyone fits. Some women come, it's like drug addiction or anything else. People have to relapse 7 times usually before, 6 to 7 times before they say, okay, I've had enough, I'm done, I want long-term recovery. So we want to catch them on 6 or 7. But sometimes you might get someone that's ready at 4. I mean, we've had that. But we don't want to see them fail. But they come, they stay 3 months. But you know what? You know better, you do better. Even 3 months or 4 months of us, they go back, they know how to talk to their family, they know who they are, they maybe have been clean for those 4 months, they don't want to use again. We kind of ruin, going back to the streets, because you can't help but think of what it could look like on the other side. Every woman except for one that has gone back out for whatever reason, as we've seen 30 women, calls us back and says, I made a big mistake, can I come back?
Mm.
You know, so they recognize what we have, and
but it's a process.
But it's a
not,
process.
Sometimes
It
it's
is.
not a decision.
Right.
You know, they have to keep like doing it,
That's
try
right.
something, and then that it's very difficult
Yeah.
to step
success
out of that.
because success looks different for everyone.
Exactly.
So one left, but she went back to her family, was reunited with her family, reunited with her children. That's a success. So maybe she
Yeah.
didn't need 2 years.
Right,
maybe
right.
6 months or 4 months was good enough for her.
Yeah.
And it worked for her. So we're learning how, as we grow,
Yeah.
what does success look like
Sure.
for everyone? How do we approach it, and what do we do with it?
Yeah.
I was listening to something on YouTube, and this one human traffic survivor was talking about how, you know, she got out of it somehow, but then she thought, you know, the pimp was making all the money, and now I can do the same thing and keep all that money.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind
Right.
of what you're dealing with, because that's all you know how to do.
Well, it's habitualized, and that there's
Right?
nothing harder in this world than
Right.
getting out of a habit.
And she said
Yeah.
she did that for a while, and
Yeah,
she
yeah,
was
yeah.
making a lot of money.
Yeah, and we have women that
Yeah.
do that because
Yeah.
they don't know. They get out, they recognize
Sure.
that now I have to support myself. I have no skills.
Yeah.
I only know how to lay on my back and
Yeah.
Yeah.
give a
And there's decent wage in
BJ.
it too. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. No,
Do you know what I
that's
mean?
it.
Those
Oh, yeah.
those are my best skills.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
And it's a lot easier than going to work at McDonald's. You know,
Exactly.
working around nasty grease
Exactly.
and people that
Yeah.
treat you like shit anyways.
Right.
So
right.
yeah.
So
yeah.
till they learn that they have self-worth and they know who
Right.
they are and they start to do it, it's very hard. And not only that, I mean, the lifestyle is plenty addicting of itself.
Sure.
There's depending on the level. When you were talking before, it
Yeah.
made me think of it. The level, you could be a little petty auntie, you know,
Right,
you're doing
right,
it
right.
and doing it for a spoon of cocaine or a or a whatever of a hit of marijuana or whatever. But then when you get to the bigger numbers,
Yeah.
okay, and you're doing it for more, it's a intoxicating lifestyle.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you're going with people, politicians and rich businessmen and corporate America, and you're getting all dressed up and you're looking fancy and you're going to motels rooms and hotel rooms, and it's a very sexy, enticing
Yeah.
lifestyle. So you forget about the torture that you're living.
Yeah.
You say, oh, look at what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and you don't want to get out, and then you feel guilty because you feel like you're there by choice,
Right.
even though you really aren't, because there's no way out for you.
Right.
Or you don't see any way out. There is a way out,
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
but you don't see a way out.
I would imagine a lot of porn stars probably get sort of wrapped even more into that.
Yeah.
Because especially let's say they got trafficked into it and then they're everywhere.
Yeah.
That's got especially you think about having a family, they're gonna see you cannot erase that
Exactly.
that stuff.
No, it's
so
out
it's got to
there.
be super hard to get out
Right.
of that and back into a life of obscurity.
Yeah.
So that's yeah.
It's go ahead.
I mean, education. We've got to educate this youth. We've got to educate people, because I'm telling you, these children that run away from home, they
Yeah.
are so vulnerable.
right.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
this is a
And to
yeah.
prevent
yes. Yeah.
even the trafficker from taking them. I mean, I was
Exactly.
just talking earlier, I'm like, there should be a home for children that run away that they can go to and be safe.
Oh yeah, there is. But the
Yeah.
problem, one of them is, it's one of the names for that is foster care,
Yeah.
which is so broken.
Yeah,
okay,
no, not foster care. I'm
I'm
thinking
sorry,
of something
some other
which is very
right,
supportive
supportive
and-
and together. So that would be
Yes.
really good. But you said something. You said something right before you said that, which made me think.
The vulnerable.
The vulnerable. I mean,
Yes.
this is the most vulnerable amongst us.
Sure.
Young girls that don't have self-esteem,
Oh, yeah.
that are walking schlumpy through the mall. Somebody
Sure.
picks up on them. So now what we're doing is trying to get into the school systems young. So I mean, even as silly as these stop bullying campaigns are, really, this is bullying at its finest.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and taking away people's rights and their ability to take care of themselves. But if we can get into the schools, now
Yeah.
we found ourselves, because we do a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of awareness stuff for churches and schools and synagogues and community effort, and we do a lot of talking on this topic, and but we want to get into the schools. So we started with the parochial schools, because they were much easier to get into than the public schools. And then we would get stopped at like the PTO and stuff in public schools because there was a time people would come in and they would scare everybody to death. So you have to recognize that as ugly as this is and as scary as this is, you can't scare your kids into not leading a normal life.
I never were.
You still
You
have
have to
were.
strengthen them.
Right.
Strengthen,
Right.
empower
That's
them.
exactly what I
empower
was
them,
gonna-
give them self-esteem. Oh, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
Say
no, no,
what
no.
You're, gonna do.
You're talking exactly about what I'm hearing is people don't feel empowered in their life.
Right.
And that's what we need education that empowers people. Don't freak them out.
Right.
Freak them out might work on a few to get them to not do it, but
And
then
now-
they're almost more ignorant than they are
Right.
educated on the subject. You want to make people feel like they have the power to make a choice, because when people have the power to make that choice,
Right.
then they can make better choices. They feel they can make choices to put themselves on a better pathway, and they feel like they've got potential and a way out, and to do and the potential to make a mistake, because if people are freaked out and they make a mistake, then they're almost controlled by the mistake, and it's easier for them to get drawn into this world.
Right.
But if they feel empowered, it's easier for them to make a mistake on any level of that course and then make the choice to get out of it.
It's like I was part of a documentary called Break the Chain,
Yeah.
which was a documentary about human trafficking here in Michigan. It followed a
Look that up.
a sexual survivor, and then also a labor trafficked young man that is going to Michigan State, or not Michigan State. I forget the name of the school. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mommy. Okay, so but anyway, so it followed this gal who's now a peer support counselor and went all the way through full circle. So it follows them to see what's going on here, and you can spot, where problems could have, where the system failed her, totally failed her in her growth, and she went from one system to the next. And we're doing a panel discussion.
Yeah, I see
this
you're
week.
all over this first page.
Yeah,
here.
but we're going into this thing. It's a new movie out. It's now it's a full length film.
Yeah.
A full length, hour and a half.
People, for those listening and for those watching, just type in Google "Break the Chain" documentary. It's available on Amazon. And where else can they see this? I see Facebook. There's a Facebook page. There's an Indiegogo page.
Yeah, there's that, and then people can rent the movie, or buy the ability to show it in movie theaters or at their churches.
That's
or their
awesome.
stuff,
Yeah,
so they can
Nice.
show it to people.
That's
okay,
awesome.
so there's
That's
an
awesome.
agreement. And they can contact me, and I can put them in charge with Laura Swanson. The
So how do they reach you?
Oh, at Edee at sanctumhouse.org.
Okay.
EDEE at sanctumhouse.org.
All right, we'll
would
put
be
that
good.
info in the bottom of our
okay.
of the page on
Great.
YouTube. Yeah.
And then there's a new documentary. It's not a documentary. It's a feature film. An hour. I think it's an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. It's called Ring of Silence. And this follows a young girl who meets somebody on the internet, which is like, when we think we aren't parenting our kids, or we can ignore our kids, the internet is like the scariest of scariest right now, because people can hide behind that screen and you don't know who you're talking to or what you're doing. So this young girl meets a guy on the internet, blah blah blah, and then she's going to go meet him in the shop and whatever, and then he slowly grooms her. And the next thing she knows, she's in, just like you said before, she's in this room, she's dating him, she thinks she's in love with him, and then he takes her to a party full of influential people, and the next thing she's trafficked and locked in the back of a truck somewhere.
She's all excited because of the influential people that are there. And that's crazy.
Yeah, so that we're previewing or presenting this Thursday night, but you can go and get that online too.
And that probably has a lot to do with why there isn't more done about this, because a lot of people at the top, they get these weird, like you're
Right.
saying, the greedy power struggle thing, or the power, chasing, and then they're like, yeah, I can have the untouchable. I can have that 14-year-old girl.
Right.
I can or boy, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and that's when I don't mean to cut
No,
you
no,
off,
no, no,
but I
please,
need to.
please,
It's
cut
so
away.
important to know that this is not just a girl-woman thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Boys, men are just as prevalent. We just don't talk. It's all
Especially
it's,
young men.
Well, young men, young boys. It's
You see
more,
that on
especially in
Hollywood.
pornography and pictures, and they buy and sell young kids and stuff like that. And we can't forget about that population.
Yeah.
So, one of our goals was down the road to address that issue too. Okay, so don't forget the boys and the men.
right.
Something else I think would be good is, I think people need to have a better understanding of the perpetrators. I think that I think for one, because a lot of perpetrators have a lot of issues,
Right.
And when, and as much as like when they do things, we villainize them, and justifiably so.
Absolutely.
They do some fucked up shit.
Yes, they do.
But in order to prevent this from happening, there needs to be a way for these people to reach out in the early days before they commit the crime. I've got some issues, man. I'm craving the wrong thing.
Right.
It's better to have someone to turn to without the judgment,
Right.
than to be judged and cast away as, the next Hitler. And then you can't turn to anyone. Then you're much more likely to go down that dirty path.
Well, there are a lot of organizations now that are doing, and nonprofits.
Yeah,
There's one
yeah,
called Epic and Detroit Crime and stuff like that are looking on the internet. So they're going behind the scenes on ads for sale on the internet. And then behind the scene, when somebody types in, can I, hey baby, let's, go out tonight.
Sure.
They chime in and say, I just want you to know, we're not going to arrest you, but do you know that you're buying underage women? And could I talk to you? Now, some of them will stay on the line and talk to them.
That's good.
And they come in. So when you said catch them before, so and explain to them what they're buying, how they're harming the civil, the community and people.
Get them to see the
and
human side.
Get to see the human side of what they're really doing. This is not like, oh, it's just some gal, or they say she's 18 or 20. And she's not. Go look at the picture for real.
Yeah.
Okay? Take a real look at
There's
that
a
skinny
difference between 12 and 20. Sometimes you might not be, but typically speaking,
you can see the difference.
Yeah,
so they talk to them, and then they give them the lowdown and see if then maybe they can help other people. But it's very hard to get pimps and traffickers and people to now go and teach others of what, you think about Ice-T on TV. He was a pimp.
Yeah.
And
I
but
didn't know
talks.
that.
I think I know that.
What?
Somebody told me that.
I had
he
no
was
idea.
a pimp.
He was that's good because he's a huge advocate for helping folks
exactly.
out. Yeah.
So, but you have to get people that will come out and talk about it, not just let me go and recruit more pimps and teach you how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But look at the demand side. Not this. We've got the supply side down, but now we need to know the demand side and how do we stop the demand? How do we stop people from? People are not property.
Yeah.
Slavery we think it stopped in the 1800s or whenever. It never stopped. They just changed the name
Acceptable slavery stopped.
Right. That's exactly right. Right. Well, none of it's acceptable.
Right. Open and society.
Right now, there's more slavery than there has ever been.
That's correct.
That's crazy. When we think about the numbers of people on the face of the planet, there's more opportunities and ways to kind of keep it under the covers.
It's just called human trafficking now.
And that's the other thing. When you said that, I was just thinking about it. People tend to think that human trafficking is a violent crime.
Sure.
It is not a violent crime.
Sure.
It can be done by the nice neighbor down the street that appears like the nice neighbor.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things we have to break through our limitations of how we think of these perpetrators.
Right.
Because it could be the sweetest looking lady down the street.
But it's not all men that are the perpetrators.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes women.
And sometimes it's
true.
young people. It could be like your classmate.
Right.
Who's been trained.
Says, hey, come on by. I've got this guy is taking pictures. You could be a model.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, we have to help people break through these limitations of how they view the perpetrators.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, it's true. And in a lot of ways.
Well, like, you think of movies like Taken, where you think that, now, not to say that it doesn't happen, that people are kidnapped, but they're not kidnapped like in Taken.
That's the most extreme.
That's the most extreme.
There's no Liam Neeson coming after you.
He's not coming to
the
say.
action moves to fight off
exactly.
the big
More often than not, they're enticed. By, we can give you
and it's more
this.
casual. You might not even know you're being trafficked.
Right.
You're not thinking of it that way. You're like, well, he's just making a little money off some dirty deeds.
We have women in our house that come to us. And they say, I didn't even know I was being trafficked. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't have a name for it.
I believe it.
I until I came here and started listening, and I could put an identity to it. I could put a word to it. It's like, sometimes you don't know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got clean and I started to have emotions because I had been numbed for so long. And these are women that we see, and I use women because that's what we see, but remember men and boys and everything. But I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know my emotions, and I had to ask, would you help me identify what this emotion is? And the women come to us, don't know what they're feeling, don't know what to call it, don't know what to do with that. So what we started to find in the early days, like it's a year and a half, we're still fledglings, but that a drug addiction and trauma go hand in hand with human trafficking people. So what do you address first, the addiction or the trauma? If you address the trauma first, okay, well, now once they start to feel their trauma, they want to use, so they relapse, so you lose them there. If you address the addiction first, now you're not dealing with the main reason that you're there to see them. So it's a real fine line. There are not a lot of places, therapists or organizations that treat the two coexisting diagnoses together, at the same time. And I lost my train of thought because we got here from someplace. But
well, I mean,
no,
it's very complex.
I'm probably distracted.
But
it's a very complex process.
Right.
It's not just simple. Like, oh, you just take somebody in. Like, the like you were saying, they can go back out there on the streets again.
Right. Exactly.
And like, I just like to always think of it a process. You never know what's around the corner for you.
No.
You can't predict. You can't. You just don't know the complexity of their own lives.
Sure.
The trauma they may have experienced at their own home from their father or their mother.
That's got to be the worst.
If they ran away. So I mean, how do you?
The people that you trust.
How do you wrap your mind around it? How do you ever trust anyone?
And I would imagine too, a lot of the people that they're trying to immigrate to the States, you know what I'm saying? And like that's their ticket over. It's like, well, you got to do some work for me.
That's exactly
even if it's not. There's some markets nearby here where I'm like, not only are they, working illegally. I don't have a problem with people working illegally. I don't give a shit about that. It's like they're not taking anything away. That's that's a whole other conversation. My problem is when they're forced to pay off their trip.
Oh gosh, with the interest, and the interest is accruing and accruing and accruing. These are debts. That's another form of trafficking, debt bondage. So now you have to work this off. And by the way, because they were, they're here sending money back to their family. So their family, wherever they're from, doesn't know that they're here doing this. They're a hero back home, sending some kind of money to keep them here and not ask questions. And now they're working to pay off a debt, keep their family alive, have them not kill their young sister or brother or their dog or whatever they're being threatened with, because they are being threatened. And it's a debt that will never, ever, ever get paid.
I heard about that so many times in China.
I can't even imagine.
People forced to do it just to pay. And it wasn't even just sex slavery. It was like, I'm working this job to pay, for the farm bills or something like that.
For $2 an hour.
$2. It's just ludicrous, the kind of thing.
I always say, when you go down the street and you see a nail salon selling a mani-pedi for $8 today, special, a lifetime price, who is not getting paid? They are not paying their overhead. They are not, no, I'm not going to accuse every inexpensive
Sometimes
nail
it might be the family.
Right, exactly. Okay, so
sorry,
I don't want to
guys,
do
we
that.
don't mean to villainize.
Right.
Sometimes.
Or they're working for $1.50 an hour or $2 an hour. They're not even working for minimum wage. So you have to keep that kind of stuff in line and watch for nail salons. Maybe you're in a hotel. They have these new video things. There's one I think called Traffic something. And when you go into a hotel room around the country, you take a picture of the room you're in and then send it in to these people, and then they can identify when they see people on the internet. It will do like they do when they want to see my face looks like your face. I forget what that's called.
Oh, deep fake.
No, like they can identify the room and the hotel it's in.
Oh, okay.
And then they can go to the hotel
like
facial recognition. Okay, this is hotel recognition.
I gotcha.
So they recognize where the room is and where they're possibly trafficking out of, and then they can go find it and set up busts or stings.
No, good.
Or what have you, which is really good. And it all changes.
Yeah.
So you get sucked into in so many different ways.
There was a book that I read. It was called Snakehead. It was about I forgot her name, Madam something. But she the term in Chinese, and sorry Chinese for butchering the tones. My tones in Chinese aren't perfect, but it's called shutou. And it's Snakehead. Okay. And so her job was to bring people over from China It was actually part of China. I lived in Fujian, for almost 4 years.
Oh, really?
And she was from there, actually.
Uh-huh.
They were called Fukienese back then. But so Fuchonese is what they call them now. But her job was to bring them over here and set them up with these. They would land in New York and get dispersed through this busing system, and it was a national busing system that would snake people out into the nation to get into various service positions, prostitution, food, all kinds of different places. And that's, if I remember correctly, that's where illegal immigration sort of became a thing, was from the swarms of Chinese immigrants that were shipped over here on these really dangerous boats, often that would sink. And one of them, actually, the ship sank just off the shore, and like 12 or so died, and then others were coming out and became a huge story. And that's what started the whole bust on illegal immigration.
Really?
Yeah, from what I remember.
We've had women that have come through our home that have been like in a house in Indiana, and whatever happens, and then they get sold to another trafficker, put on a bus, gone to another city, and picked up by a total stranger in a bus station, and then taken to another trafficker, sold, $90. Okay, and sold to someone else because they were looking for a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old or whatever, and they ship them, and that's not necessarily illegal immigration.
Sure.
This is transferring somebody from here to there that came from foster care, doesn't have any real ties, doesn't have a mother, has nobody really looking for them.
Right.
And they're the vulnerable. Those are the ones that we have to watch out for.
That's
and I think when I started before saying, when I was thinking about the women that come and think, like Edee, if you and the group and the team, we have a wonderful team of, case manager, program manager, executive director, therapists, doctors, dentists. We have this whole group of people, a huge team that's working with our women, and they say, God, if you guys weren't here, what would have happened to me? I was down to I had no options for my life. And I'm like, wow. And nobody wants to give money. When you said it before, I thought, and who's funding all these places that are doing it and helping the people that are doing the work, so that when these young women and adult women, young women and adolescents and all of them, come to the place where they say, I've had enough. I've really had enough. I can't do this anymore. And where do they go? Where it's beyond me that I just feel so honored that I've been able to do this work.
I'm sure.
And but it's very frustrating because there's not enough of us out there. When I think of now that where there were 20 beds, so now maybe there's 40 beds in Michigan,
and you have 12 of them.
And we what
does that tell you about what's being done about this?
Right, exactly.
Your operational costs are $500. Get her a tissue.
I have a tissue.
Oh, you get okay.
It's hiding.
But your operational costs are pretty hefty.
Yeah.
And you're able to provide 12 beds.
Right.
I guarantee you there are more than 12 people that need some fucking help in this state alone, in this city. You know what I'm saying? And it's politicians, get off your ass.
300,000 children that are every year
that are trafficked.
Yes.
That's great. That's ludicrous.
I don't know the stat that they say, but it's an awful lot of people.
That is a lot of children.
It is.
Yeah. It's so
how
prevalent.
How can we sleep at night?
How can people get up on a stage and pretend to care about some real issues? You don't hear about this in political debates.
No.
We were just talking about how mental health. You don't hear about mental health in political debates.
Never.
And I care about the environment, but for crying out loud, okay, I get it. The planet's got, we're having some issues. What about these other things?
Yeah.
I'm sick of talking points. I'm sick of people, and this was something when we started our nonprofit. We were like, we're bringing awareness to. Fuck awareness. I'm sick.
Awareness only goes so far.
Yeah.
It only goes so far. Then you got to have the action steps.
Yeah. What are you doing to help out real people in real circumstances? Yeah. Put your money where your mouth is. But you know what? A lot of these advocacy awareness groups, they get a buttload of money.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because they just have the connections or what, but put money in the hands of people you are creating housing for people. Right. You're giving them a place, a sanctuary to go to help transform their lives.
Right, education. We've
Yes.
got one gal that's in college, her second semester in college. That was never in her wheelhouse.
You're a champion. You're
Right.
championing this program. You're spearhead. You're doing the work for them. All they got to do is help feed and fund this program.
Angel on earth. That's what I say.
No, really.
Yeah.
Why isn't there
Angel.
more money
Angel.
flowing into your direction?
I know.
And we're sitting amongst
right.
Hell yeah.
beautiful.
When you
No,
think about it, I
seriously.
mean, it's me. There are other people that are doing it and doing drop-ins. I mean, there's a need for a drop-in center, for emergency shelter, for
Yes.
women that are on the street that don't want a 2-year program, but that want to come in and take a shower and not have to get a bar of soap on the side of the road and go into a fountain
Yep.
in the front of a
Yep.
hotel someplace,
Yep.
or go into the bathroom somewhere. But for long-term treatment, not everybody's ready for it.
Sure.
That's why we want to expand our services and what we're doing.
Just to come in and learn
But
a
just to
little bit.
come in and learn a little bit, to learn more, to be able
I'm
to
with you.
do
I
all the
fully support what you're doing.
aspects of
Yeah.
it. It's not just simple.
We will do whatever we can.
Yeah,
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm very grateful for
To
the
support
opportunity to talk to you
Yeah,
guys about it.
Because
Yeah.
it's good to sit again. There are so many people out here that, and I get it. A lot of people are out there just trying to make a living. But for crying out loud, people, we need to do more than just secure our own futures. I mean, it's like, and this is a little different. We're always talking about like the mass shootings and these kinds of things. I think that's where a lot of our societal problems are coming from, where these young children are getting forgotten about. It's because everyone is so focused on themselves, making sure that, well, my future's secured. Well, what about little Sally next door? You know what I'm saying? Well, how about if you see something wrong, don't just feel bad about it in the corner. At least speak out about it. Do something.
That's one of the issues too. Is people really don't know what to do.
Yeah, sure.
So I see
sure.
this woman. Now, what am I going to do with that information? Okay, so I say something looks suspicious. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Call the police. Call the local whatever. Report it to the Polaris hotline 888-3737 888. If you want to call it in, if you see something
We'll
that's
flash
wrong,
that on the screen.
right? I mean, tell people what's going on so people can. The people that are willing to do something, you're the tip. You're the tip that gets the $50,000 reward. But the reward is self-satisfying that you actually did something. There's all sorts of programs. Volunteer your time, treasure, talent. Do something for the organizations. If you don't have money, it's not all about money. Sometimes it's just about what you can do.
Sure.
Okay, but the biggest thing is what you can do is not look the other way.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Don't stick your head in the sand and think there's nothing you can do, because you can.
You're sick about hearing it on the news program. It's too late by then.
That's right. But when they're dead and they're found on the street, they need rehabilitation. They need jobs. Here's the other thing. Jobs. I mean, yes, there are criminals that are felons that you can be afraid of if you choose to, whatever. But there needs to be felony-friendly jobs that you can go into. They need to be able to have, records expunged that have to do with a behavior that was forced on them. So they made them write a bad check, or they made them do that. But it happened during a trafficking experience. Now they're starting to be able to expunge some of that so that they can go and get a job. When that question is, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Right.
They don't have to be afraid to answer that question.
I think that what were we going to say, Roger?
I was just going to say, as a therapist, I'm required I had to learn. I had to take a class.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the state of Michigan mandates that. I think that every professional, every non-professional needs to take that class. People need to understand, how deep this is. And it's not just happening over there. It's happening. It could be happening right in your own home and you don't even know it. Right? And so I really think that, because the eye cannot see what the mind does not know, what the mind is not aware of.
Look at you.
It just can't.
But it's the truth,
right? Right, and then once the eye can see it and recognize it, then that action's got to happen, and that's what we're saying. Even though people may know, like if you're a physician and you see that
And
you
you
know
better
there's
speak up.
something very
You
You
better
have to
speak
be able
up,
to
yeah.
know where
Oh,
to
yeah.
send people,
right.
what to
You've
do.
got to speak
Yeah,
up.
you have
Get a
to.
set of protocol. Every doctor, every
Yes.
dentist, every emergency room, every hospital needs to have a protocol. If I
Everyone.
identify a
Yes.
human traffic, because
Yes.
now they have to
Yes.
take classes, but even the police haven't all been trained in how
Yeah,
to
no,
identify
that's
human
true.
trafficking
That's
Some,
victims.
sometimes police are perpetrators.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're-
Sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Often.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Or
but-
enablers.
Yeah.
No, hey,
enablers.
often is often.
You know,
No,
and,
call it
and
like it
enablers.
is.
But
Yeah.
but then to know what is the protocol? What are you going to do? Who are you going to call with this information after you identify it?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to call a program. You're going to call the police. You're going
Yeah.
to call social services, protective service. What are you going to do with the information and have a way to do it? Just
Yeah.
not aware. They can't just make them smart.
Sure.
They got to be smart enough to know who to pass it off to. You know, I guess
Exactly.
when you're on the golf
So
course.
who would you say the first person that they should call?
Well, depending on who the person is or whatever,
Okay,
it depends.
but let's say it's a
if they're
professional.
if it's a professional, if the person's addicted, you need to get them to a detox center. We're a drug-free program,
Okay.
so we partner with different drug detox centers where
Yeah.
they have to go in a 21-day program detox, and they can come to us. They have to be clean when they come to us.
Yeah.
So they could call us, and we could monitor that. We could send it back and have them get clean and then come through us for the program. So it would be either a program, a detox center, perhaps the police,
Yeah.
if child protective services.
Yeah.
It depends on what's really happening. Maybe they just need to get to another physician or a different kind of therapy or something. We just have to analyze the situation, but have if this,
Yeah.
if this. You
Right,
need to
right.
create a real a flow chart.
Yeah,
Your organ is
there
every
needs to be
organ.
a protocol.
A
Okay,
protocol,
this,
exactly.
this,
Yeah, and it's
that
easy.
needs to be pasted everywhere in all bathrooms
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
all public bathrooms.
Yes. There's
Yeah.
no one
Needs to
size
have
fits all.
something.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Really.
Especially in places that are likely to encounter these kinds of folks. You know.
Yeah.
But now
They
there's
should.
when you go through, truck stops, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they're
Especially,
all
yeah.
over truck stops. But now in the back, like when you're on the interstate and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, they have things that give you the hotline phone number,
that's
Polaris
good.
Hotline's phone number
Mm-hmm.
to call, where it's, obscured so that if your trafficker's following you or what have you, they don't know that you have the number and you can keep it and do stuff. So, and mostly, more than anything, you want to not, if our goal is to help and not harm, you want to analyze the situation. So if a woman comes into the emergency room and she's got this man or woman that's watching her every move, be careful of the questions you ask. What are you going to say so he doesn't think she's talking and telling, so he doesn't then snatch her out of there so she can't get the treatment, or
Yeah.
when she gets home she's going to get beat up for talking or whatever, because there's always consequences.
Sure.
This is not like a
Right.
victimless
No,
crime.
you can
This-
actually endanger the person's life. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
yeah, so you have to be
So
very
you have to be very
cautious.
Yeah.
sensitive and very careful. I think you have to learn. You have to learn the
Right.
protocol.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by, if everyone needs to think about it. It needs to be in front of them.
Yeah.
So I'm even thinking, like, what if this was pasted everywhere in every single bathroom
Right, yeah.
that a man or a woman goes
Right,
into?
yeah, yeah.
It needs to be in front of us.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
somebody's going to watch this podcast, they're going to feel really bad, and
Sure.
then they're just going to forget.
Do nothing.
It'll fade
Yeah.
out of
They'll
the.
fade out.
Fade
Fade,
out until they see
away,
the
and
next
it'll be
thing.
done. What am I going
Right.
to do? What's my next step? Oh, I don't have
Yeah.
one.
It needs to
Right.
be in our faces
Oh,
for
yeah.
the time being,
You know,
until we can
yeah.
really
Right.
like
Beyond,
understand.
Jeffrey, whatever his name
Epstein.
is.
Epstein. Yeah. So that's gonna fade away.
Beyond that,
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
talking point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, there's because it's a
There needs to be
reality.
bill.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
right.
This should be attached to a healthcare bill.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and that's the other thing, lobbying. I mean, there are lots of people, that do legal work and lobby. NCJW does it all the time. They go up to change bills and create stuff for victims and for survivors. And the Attorney General's office, there's bills presented all the time. So
Yeah.
when we make sentences stiffer for the perpetrator, and lessen sentences, start to treat victims like victims and not like criminals, because
Yeah.
they're picked up
Yeah.
and they're perceived and treated like criminals
Yep,
when they're
yep.
not.
That's what I was gonna say. I think the penal system is a big perpetrator of the continuation of or the proliferation of these issues.
Yes.
And again, it goes to the victims and it goes to the perpetrators. the people who kind of get started in the beginning, once you're a criminal and you're done for life, it kind of doesn't leave you many options. You know, and these people, as much as we want to hate people that do the bad things in their life, if there's no room for redemption,
Right.
where do you go? And you got to stay alive. You know, you're not going to commit suicide. What do? You still find a way to make money doing that. And your morals aren't going to just step on in and go, you know, go find something else to do. It's like, no, that does not happen. And it's like, when these people are lumped in together, the victims are lumped in with their perpetrator. How does that make people feel?
Well, you know, too, when you just said that, so there are women, men, whatever, that decide that they want to be prostitutes. So you need to distinguish. I mean, not every prostitute is trafficked, okay? Not every sex worker or every gal or guy in a strip club is being trafficked, but many are. They're taking the money they earn and turning it over. But some are doing it just because that's what they want to do. They don't know anything different. They've done it their whole life. They've been trafficked. Now they're on, like you said earlier. She was on her own. She didn't know what else to do, so she went out. She became a prostitute, and she made a lot of money. So there are choices that we all make.
Yes.
You know, but to know the distinction, what you were just saying, when they are incensed, if they really are a victim, to treat them, to recognize the distinctions and the differences, and victims are victims, and people that are not victims are not victims. But at least give the people that are victims of this heinous crime and this awful mess an opportunity for redemption.
I mean, how is someone like that supposed to improve their life carrying on with this? 'Cause it's a felony record,
right?
You know, like you're talking about, and I know people that have tried to get their records expunged. It's a pain in the ass. It takes years I think it takes at least 7 years post-crime, and I don't know if that's even depending on the crime itself. And then you can begin to look into expungement.
Right.
And even then, it's still, you gotta hire a lawyer. That could be very expensive, you know. And then it's like, then how are you supposed to find a job to pay for this to get it done to begin with?
It's a vicious cycle. But we help women. We do help our women clean their records up.
That's good.
So there are lots of new organizations that are doing legal work for women that are coming out of this arena to help them get their records clean so that they can get a driver's license. I mean, even identification. They don't have social security number, and they're scared. So they don't have a social security number. They don't have a picture ID. I mean, you certainly didn't need it when they were being trafficked. And now they need it. So how do they go get it when they have nothing to? I don't have a birth certificate. I don't have anything. Now what do I do?
How do you fit in society?
So when we talk about making things easier, the system very often, because of the way it's structured, is very difficult to maneuver for people that have, here I am. I'm standing here now. What do I do to become a real person in this community? It's very difficult.
So let me ask you this. What got you into this? What got you started into
Well,
doing this?
Obviously the SELP from Landmark. Okay, and I saw a need. Okay, and because I knew I was one of them. As simply as anybody else was. Okay, that it's. I mean, through my life in addiction. I did many things that I'm not proud of. Okay, and many things that I'm sad about. And I was lucky enough to not that I couldn't have been, held captive someplace and not gotten out in a night of insanity that I was living. So I knew that it could be me. It can be my granddaughter. Got tweet. It could be my girlfriend, a friend, a child. It can be all of us. There's no special kind of person other than somebody that puts themselves in a situation of vulnerability, somebody that thinks less of themselves, not a lot of themselves. It can be any single person. And it was like I said earlier, I was always for the underdog because I was the underdog. I came from a middle class family. Good. I was but I always was for. My father used to hire people out of prison and give them jobs and stuff.
Cool.
He was, and I just know that I was often dinner table talk. Because I wasn't always, the things that I did I'm not always proud of. I'd been arrested. I'd been, just all my history was such that it was spotted with a lot of things that embarrassed me, embarrassed my family, and and I overcame it.
Yeah.
And I knew that anybody, if they decide they want to overcome something and change, they can.
It's possible. Yeah.
It's possible. So I was them, and in that I started this. So
That's
Powerful testament to
big time. And you know what's funny is that there are so many people in a lot of positions, not just the human trafficking element, that need to know about that. I mean, look at what you've done. You know, they need to know that you have the potential to turn your life around, and not just to turn it around, but to be successful at something.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it does. I have a master's degree.
Yeah.
I was a business owner. I was in the private sector for many, many years, had my own organizations, my own companies. I was a school teacher. I mean, I had this whole life, and yet, you know, I got into addiction.
Yeah.
I got into a crazy lifestyle, sometimes very intoxicating and exciting. I didn't necessarily until I got arrested.
Yeah.
I didn't want to necessarily get out.
Yeah.
Okay, or didn't know how. I was trapped. I used to look in the mirror and say, there has to be a better way. This is not the way I want to live my life. And I know that just talking to the women that we serve, they have all looked at themselves and said, this cannot be how I'm going to live my life, and are looking for solutions. And we say now, you know, Sanctum House is a solution. We are your way out.
That's good.
Programs like us are the way out. All you have to do, and I know it because I did it, is say, I'm going to do it. And one step at a time, make the commitment to changing who I was into who I want to be.
That's awesome.
You know, it's like getting a new job.
I dig that. Yeah.
This is your new job. Your new job is to become somebody that you're proud of.
You know what I think a lot of that takes too, and I can see it in your eyes, it's the removal of bullshit in your life. You got to get to a point, and I find that with a lot of people that have been, like my father, that dude went through hell, and he still goes through it. He puts himself through a lot. Everyone, he's the
poster child.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone in the family knows it, you know. But the thing that I find about him that I give him a lot of credit for is no matter what he's who lies about stuff, but he's still very genuine when you talk to him. He's not lying about his errors.
Right.
He's not trying to pretend to be someone else. And that's something that I find that a lot in people that have been through hell. And I can appreciate that a lot more than someone that's got the picture perfect life, but they're bullshitting me. Yeah. You know, I mean, how the people in our society fantasize too much about the Instagram model.
Right.
About the business magnate who's got it all going on. He's got the cars and the girls. We fantasize so much about this life that we don't see these people are making the same errors. The higher you go, the dirtier it gets. These people are living in the same filth, if not more. They're butt deep in shit, not just knee deep.
Right.
You know, the difference is that the higher you go, it seems like it's harder for people to talk about it.
Because you don't want to expose yourself.
Exactly. They don't want to. And
you're vulnerable. The minute you expose yourself, you're vulnerable.
Exactly.
Now you're vulnerable to, I believe, that the more vulnerable you are, the more opportunity you have. If you don't take a risk, you can't do what you want to do. And I remember when I first started doing this, I went to my son, I went to my brother, I went to my kids, my grandchildren, and I said, I'm going to expose who I am.
No, good.
So that I can do this. Are you okay? Because I was writing a book. Are you okay with me talking about our stuff?
Sure.
Oh, Mother, we're so proud of you. Oh, we're so proud of all of it. Blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, I'm going to go for it. And that
takes courage.
Yeah,
that strengthens other people, man. You hear about that.
Sure.
So I thought, you know, what's the worst they're going to do? They're going to talk about me. Do I really care? Well, they're talking about me anyway. Maybe. And maybe, just like the rest of the world, 99.9%, they're thinking about themselves. They aren't even thinking about me, other than for the 1 second that they think, oh, gee, that was interesting, and then they're back to thinking about themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
But the one little person that's out there that says, oh my God, if you could do it, I could do it.
Oh yeah, own it.
Own it. It's
your
who
life.
I want. I mean, I you know.
That's empowering.
There's something so freeing about being able to just step in your own truth.
Oh yeah.
And not really judge yourself.
Right.
Not to say I was a horrible person.
Right.
Because you know what? At any moment we can connect to to that part of
Yeah.
us
Oh,
that
yeah.
is so perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh
That
yeah.
is just so, non-judgmental.
You know what it's.
That I am,
Yeah.
like, who am I? Who am I?
Exactly.
You found
Right,
that place
right,
within
right.
yourself.
Yeah.
And all this other peripheral stuff,
It's
Yeah.
just that.
it's just that. It's like,
just that.
it's the past. It's not you today sitting right
It
here.
made me who I am.
Yeah, it
today.
made you. It strengthened you too.
It's like what you're doing is like you've been juggling the whole time, right? And
Yes.
finally you get to set the balls down.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I don't have to do this all day, every day I walk outside.
You can just,
Man.
put
Yeah,
it
it's kinda
down,
cool.
unburden.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do.
So
It's empowering for
Yeah.
me. It really is. And in the
No, that's
end
good.
result, if I look back at it as I'm sitting here, it's not something I think about
Yeah.
at any time other than when I'm thinking about it. But now I'm thinking about it because I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
But it is. It's very freeing. It's very empowering. It's very, I am who I am, and it's okay.
Yeah, I really think that one of the largest problems we have on a personal level, but widespread, is we have a plague of inauthenticity amongst ourselves. We struggle to form an identity, and then you have to maintain that identity, and that infiltrates every aspect of your life. Your relationships, your work,
Yeah.
your future, your past, everything and everyone you come into contact with. If you cannot be yourself, you will find an identity to take up. And you just, at that point, you really just have to pray that the identity becomes something that doesn't put you in harm's way.
Right.
And we need to start removing our identities from ourselves. And be, your identity is going to be itself in the world.
Yeah, it's going to create its own.
It will.
It creates a life of its own.
Exactly.
It takes on a life of its own.
Exactly.
And your authentic self comes through. I mean, if
Exactly.
I had to think about who I was all the time, my executive director, Karen, she'll say to me, okay, Edee. Okay, sure you really want to do that, and, she'll, lower this, don't do that. But you know what? I am who I am. And I'm not always appropriate. And I don't always say the right. I don't always say the right thing.
Yeah,
And I
no.
don't, I just
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, yeah.
And oh well, if I have to guard everything, I know there's certain places you have to guard what you say and
Sure.
be cautious.
And
But I'm
church.
generally
Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah.
I'm who I am wherever I go. I'm like the same. I show up.
Yeah.
I tend to show up
Yeah.
the same. It's so much easier
Oh yeah.
to show up as who you
As
are
who
than
you
to
are.
show up as who you think you should be.
Oh yeah.
And
then worrying about everyone's opinions
Right.
about you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that again, you're juggling. You're like, oh, okay, the more people you gotta juggle.
Right? How am I going to show myself to you?
I think any extreme. I
Sure.
mean, any time we are just focused on what other people are thinking about
Yeah.
us or what
Right.
we're thinking about other people, that's also extreme.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's more important to really just recognize that if you can be who you are
Right.
without hurting other people. I mean, sometimes you can start to hurt other people too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't
Right?
want-
I mean, which is like, offending people and things like that.
Yeah, I
but
don't need.
So
Yeah,
there's-
you have
there's
to
a-
be careful.
right,
Yeah.
you have to
I mean,
be-
you can
yeah,
be
you have to be
yourself, but
somewhat-
without
there's
offending
a
or hurting people.
balance. You don't want to
it's
go.
always
yeah.
a balance.
Right.
Either extreme is
I'm not gonna go around my grandma.
Right.
My grandma, you would fucking believe what just happened again. You wouldn't say that. I'd choose my language a little more
Of
cautious,
course.
but I'm still gonna be me.
Right,
I'm not gonna
that's it.
pretend to be someone for
But
even my grandmother.
and that
Yeah.
me is always changing every
Yeah,
day,
that's very
every
true,
moment.
right.
Oh sure,
Yeah,
sure.
The power of now.
Yeah, right? We are all the power of
The
now.
power of this moment.
But as
But-
long as you're not trying to convince other people of something, and that's a skill you have to
Yeah.
develop because
Inspire. Edie is
Right.
inspiring people now
Yeah.
through her through
Yeah.
who she is and the work that she's doing.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
literally
Well-
you're inspiring these young women to
Yeah.
know that, you know what, Edie did it. I can do it too.
And what's really beautiful to see at the house is when the women are changing. And
Yeah.
now they're coming
Yeah.
into their own empowerment and they're going to college and they're getting jobs and they're getting their GED and
Yeah.
they're speaking. And now many of them want to go out and speak, share their story, learn how to share their story without, I can share my story without getting triggered,
Sure,
without
sure.
it, making me a victim again, but to go out and share
Yes.
and show, I mean,
To be
the
authentic.
the women that we see, to me, are
Yeah.
probably the most courageous women in the world.
Yeah.
Because they expose themselves.
yeah.
They step out, and it's very empowering just to see the courage that they have to tell their own stories.
I think what you're speaking to is something so huge. It's the next thing to death, which is shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You no longer have that shame about yourself.
Right.
And by doing that, you are helping the others to step out of their shame.
They're comfortable in their
Because
own
a
skin.
lot of times, you know, like, I don't know if you've read Power versus Force with Dr. David Hawkins, but he talks about, you know, like when you calibrate all these different emotions, death is something that people are very
Right.
afraid of. But shame is the next step right over death.
Really, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because shame says, I am this.
rather.
And that,
Yeah.
that speaks to what you're talking about when you're, you know, they're trying to tell you you're not appropriate when you speak sometimes. That's why, to me, it's so important to be, even if you're rude and crude.
I'm not rude and crude.
But I mean, yeah, anyone that's to that
Right.
point. I prefer someone being themselves
Yeah.
in that way. And sure, you should learn to curtail perhaps some of the things that you
Right.
say, but still.
Not always politically correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's
It's
just
more like that.
there are too many people that are trying to, you know, just not be themselves.
Yeah.
To get the best out of other people, to say, I'm going to get these people to like me based on this
Yeah.
behavioral pattern.
Right.
There's way too much of that. And then the truth is when you go home and you're yourself at a dinner table, why can't you speak that way?
Right.
You know, amongst the masses,
Right.
amongst the people that you encounter. That just, it's like the second you step out of your home, you got to be something
It's got to
else.
be
Like,
something
yeah.
else. Yeah.
That's
Good to
error
be who
number
you are.
one.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good to be who you are all the time. It's much easier.
What
I
does
think.
Chewy think? This guy's always himself. He's always himself.
Very sweet. Little apricot pup.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
But all right.
Well, this
right.
is what a great conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Wow, I've
nice.
learned a lot, Edee, and
Me too.
I'm just so thankful that you were able to make this time
Oh,
for us
I'm
to come
grateful
out.
too.
And
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
hope that this.
I hope to see you again.
Yeah.
Oh,
for
we will.
sure,
Yeah, we'll be talking.
sure.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna get you on the
Definitely.
TV show, Mental
Okay.
Health Unplugged. Mental Health Unplugged coming soon. Thank you.
Very good.
But yeah, so any you want to any shout outs or something? What you're doing? Where
No,
they can
other
reach
than if you
at?
want to learn more about us, you know, Sanctum House, it's sanctumhouse.org. We have a website, sanctumhouse.org, and we have a Facebook page that you can go and like. It's just Facebook and look up Sanctum House. You can see what we're doing. If you want to volunteer, you want to donate money, you want to learn how to open a house, you know, see what we did, the mistakes we made. We're very wanting to share what we're doing. And any questions, I mean, and you can, call me at 248-574-9373. That's my office.
We'll put that down below.
Extension
too.
102. And I guess that's my shameless plug.
Okay, no, hey, plug
Other
away.
than
You
send
deserve
cash.
it. You deserve it. Send some cash.
Send some cash. That was
Yeah.
always
Yes.
good. We can
Yeah,
always use
no.
it. And that's the other thing. People, just have to put this out there. People want to send money to pay for programming and this and buying, shoes and clothes and programs and stuff. But if you don't have a house, and if you don't have people to pay for salaries, and you don't have money for that, then you have no program.
Sure.
Okay, you can't do the programming without paying for the lights and the utilities and the gas. So if people want to do, capital campaigns, our building is coming up for sale. We'd like to
Yeah.
expand. But money for stuff like that is really important too. To
Oh,
say,
it is.
send money and do it for best use
Yeah.
for any organization,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just
yeah.
our organization.
Sure.
I mean any organization.
Like Easy Awakening.
Yeah, that's right. Easy Awakenings could use some too. Yeah,
You like these interviews?
right.
This equipment isn't free.
That's it, but that's really the truth.
It
It's
is.
not, and
It
people
is.
need
Oh,
to
yeah.
know that too. And I think
Oh, yeah.
they don't.
Yeah.
Everybody gets altruistic. Well, I want to help the person. Well, you're helping the person
Oh, yeah.
by giving them a roof over their head and food in their belly.
Okay, so Edie, just for our viewers' sake, let's say somebody can't really afford to give money.
Uh-huh.
Is there any other way that they can help?
Oh yeah, we have a whole volunteer program.
Okay.
So it's a 2-hour training of how to be a volunteer and boundary setting and stuff like that. So they can volunteer their time. We always need people to do transportation and driving, people to do mentorship, people to take them walking, hiking, teach us how to sew, teach us how to cook. If you have a skill that you like, come in and do that kind of thing around the house.
That's awesome.
If you have, social media skills, we can always use people that can piggyback on our social media and do shout outs and expand our reach to places. So there's all sorts of stuff. Time, talent, treasure. You know, the same thing. There's lots of venues, so you can just call us and you can talk to our volunteer coordinator, and she'll lead you in the right direction of what to do. Oh, you know what else is always fun?
What's that?
Is to do a third party charity event for us. Do something with
that's
your
pretty cool.
people,
Yeah,
and then we become your beneficiary, or have a jean day at your work and everybody pays $1 to wear blue jeans, or do a collection of toilet paper, paper towels, you know, hand sanitizer, you know, all the things that we
so
need
they can
to use in the house.
Like General Motors could do
Yeah.
that. You know, I think some of these, like the larger corporations, these are the multi-billion-dollar corporations. A lot of them only provide for like STEAM, you know, educational purposes. They need to provide a little more for this.
Right.
Do something like that. You know, have everyone in your organization pay $1. $2, however much they want, to wear some jeans for the day.
Yeah, we used to do that at
which is
Chrysler.
good. Yeah.
It'd be a great program. Reach out, help people like.
Right. No, but it is, and it's easy. Those kinds of things. Have a chili cook-off, and we'll get the money from it. And whatever you feel like you want to do. I mean, there's lots of opportunities.
use your
to
own
give.
talents,
Use
right?
your own
Get
talents. Use
creative.
your own creativity, and come up with something.
and have fun with it.
Exactly, and that's it.
I got a question too before we get off. So let's say there is a guy, a perpetrator or a girl, whoever the person is. Let's say they're wrapped up in it and they're thinking about getting out of it, but they want to do it in a way that's not going to get them into trouble.
Okay.
Or maybe they have to face some repercussions or whatever. What's the best way for them to kind of step out?
The best way is to call us.
Okay.
You know, is to really just give us a phone call, and then give us a number that's a safe number for us to call you back on. You know, where you won't be monitored.
Sure.
And then we can always call them back. I mean, that's the only way. They have to do the first reach out.
Yeah,
And then they can
yeah.
start the process.
I think that's huge
perfect.
too.
Yeah.
Because there are bound to be people that want to get out of it.
Yeah,
that just
absolutely.
and let's end the cycle. You know.
Right.
on any
Or if they're
spectrum we can.
online, they can. We have an information. You know, like just say, I'd like to come into the program. I think I'm in trouble, and we'll get the email,
We'll put
and
that on our
then give
website.
us a way to respond back to them. So we get a lot of inquiries that way. People's parents call. My daughter, I think my daughter's in trouble.
That's
How
great.
do I get her into your program? We get emails like that.
That's great.
Questions
That's
on our website.
Yeah.
So there's lots of, or even our notifications on our Facebook page. They come hidden. Nobody else
So
gets
they
to
can
read them but
DM
us.
direct message you. Okay.
Direct message us. There's lots of different ways to reach us.
Wow, lots of great information.
Yeah.
This was
here.
awesome. This was a really good
And
episode.
we, you know, our biggest hope for all this is that people, first of all, recognize and
That's
then
it.
start to take action.
Yes.
Everybody, not just people wrapped up in it.
No.
People sitting down at home in their comfortable couches too.
Yeah.
Everybody
Right.
take some action. Yeah.
And don't be afraid to parent your kids when something looks different. If your kids come home and they have jewelry they never had, or new friends that are older than them, or they're, all of a sudden they're not doing their homework. I mean, pay attention. Pay attention. Put a tracker on their phone. There's nothing wrong with knowing where your kids are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we're all
Be a
afraid.
parent.
We're all
Yeah.
afraid of interfering with their
Sure.
lives and their privacy and all this kind of stuff. You are a parent. I
Yeah.
mean, and do that
They need
because
that
it's
guidance.
safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And they'll
really-
appreciate it a hell of a lot more later on.
Yeah, but it's
you
really
know?
the truth.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I'm an adult. When I get home, after I drive home, I call my girlfriend and I say, I got home safe and sound. Or call me when you get home so I know you're okay.
Oh, sure.
I mean, so what's so terrible about it? It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
safety.
Yeah, yeah.
When my girlfriend, she didn't answer her phone since last night. This morning, I said, where are you, okay? Are you on the floor dead? I mean, call me back and tell me you're okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's human nature. We
Yeah.
care about the people we love, and we
Yeah.
want to know that they're safe.
Oh, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it.
No, there
just a little
isn't.
check-in.
Exactly.
You want to give your kids the space to
Oh,
grow and to
absolutely.
be.
I'm not talking
but,
about-
Yeah, but you're not talking about an invasion of privacy. You're
no.
talking about, are you safe?
Are you safe?
know what I'm
Plain,
saying?
that's exactly
Yeah,
right.
no, that's
it's
good.
a totally
That's good.
different thing.
I
than
love you, I
hovering.
care.
That's
I know,
right.
I
You're
know,
saying, I
I
love you,
know.
I
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what that says. I love you, I
Do
care.
the dishes, Dana.
You're right. Do the dishes, fold the laundry. Where's the floor? Get
Yeah.
the broom. No, it's not. Just get the broom. You've
And
got
then
one
meet
chore.
the boyfriends or the girlfriends.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's if you're gonna let them date, meet them.
Right. And
Check
if you
'em
have
out.
the house where they all want to hang out, that's even better.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you're the safe house.
Exactly.
You get to know who everybody, know your friends' parents, because often the other parents are dangerous.
And if you're getting some bad vibes, dive into that.
That's right.
Don't ignore the bad vibes. There's stuff going on inside of you that recognize a little bit of something. Could be nothing, but better nothing and you know than
right.
something and you don't.
Exactly.
Intuition is always 100% right.
Hell yeah.
Always.
About
always.
something.
Yeah.
It's
It's
about
never
something.
failed,
It
yeah.
may not be what you think it is.
Right, but
Yeah.
it's something.
But it's something.
it's something.
It's a little bit of something. So, well, awesome. This was an
Okay.
amazing thing, man. So thanks
Very cool.
so much
Thank
for coming
you.
on.
Thank you, Edie.
This was
Thank
fun.
you. Love you.
Yeah.
Mwah.
Yeah. It's
Let
good
me
to
the other
have
cheek.
folks in.
See, I like to be balanced.
No, it's all right.
Yeah,
That's
there
all
you
right. All right, guys. Well, yeah. Again, please look into donating to Sanctum House. Donate to Easy Awakenings. Check out easyawakenings.org and .com, and then sanctumhouse.org. Sanctumhouse.org.
Correct.
Facebook. Check out the documentary. It was
Break the Chain.
Break the Chain. I had to research Break the Chain documentary because there's some sort of song that comes up and that's the most popular.
Okay.
If you type in Break the Chain documentary, that comes up. If you type in Sanctum House, Michigan, Sanctum House EDEE, you'll get all of that stuff.
Right.
Facebook, YouTube, you're
Right,
going
on
to YouTube channel.
on Vimeo, lots of interviews, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd love to have you on again. This
I'd
was a
love
blast.
to be a part of this. Easy Awakening.
Yeah.
This was an awakening. I wasn't expecting to know what to expect, and you woke me right up.
Hey.
So I love it.
That's our goal. Real conversations with real
Yeah,
people. That's
this is
what
nice.
we're all about.
And you're easy to look at. So
Oh, I appreciate it. It's the half beard.
Right. I'm 72. I can say that.
You're still beautiful. You're still beautiful. All right, guys. All right. Well, all right. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so
you.
much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. So stop recording.